So first, if Ms. Greger wants to come up and briefly talk about the professional development summary. So this is an annual report that we've been given in the past 2 years in January and June. It helps clarify how much money is being spent to assist the teachers in improving their instruction. So as you'll see tonight, we've spent over $30,000 this year for professional development. And so at this point, I will turn it over to Kylie, who will go into more detail.
Good evening. So I just want to touch on some of the finer points of this professional development summary, just to give you an idea of where our professional development money is coming from and how we're spending that money. We get our professional development money from 2 federal grants, a Title I grant and a Title II grant. Title I being the grant that is provided to us to spend those monies for our students who are considered at risk based on socioeconomic status. And then our Title II federal grant is for just general professional development for the enhancement and enrichment of teachers as well as administrators. So if you take a look at or if you see it in your packet, or I think Marianne has it on the screen, that first table that I put in there is information about our Title I expenditures to this point. We initially got a little bit less than this, but ultimately our Title I monies that we were provided with were $13,117. As you can see, we have at this point only allocated $4,322.99. So we still have a really large chunk of Title I professional development money left to spend, which is exciting because we are looking at ways that we can put that money into some of our interventions that we use to support some of our at-risk students, including our academic support courses. So if you look at the bulleted list there's just an overview of some of the different things that we spend that Title I professional development money on, areas like co-teaching and special education, as well as Chicago area literacy leaders, conferences for struggling readers. So we really do use that money to try to address the needs of our students who have some of those deficits that have been identified through their testing, but all of that money has to focus on our Title I students. It's not just for the general population of the school. If you turn the page, and Marianne has the next page, our Title II money we sort of allocate on 4 different areas. We try to address our needs in technology, our needs in Common Core state standards, which are also our instructional strategies that we use to improve our ACT scores. A large chunk of our Title II general PD goes to AP, conferences and institutes in the summer. And then we also use a portion of that money to address school and department goals. So if you take a look at, if you go all the way down the columns, we originally started out with just over $20,000 in Title II professional development monies, and we have spent $17,866 of that money. So we're spending that down. We've put a lot of focus this year into our AP courses. We try to make sure that our AP teachers, as well as all of our teachers in our content areas, get an opportunity to go to AP conferences to hone their craft and to get information about test changes and how they can prepare their students for those exams and then ultimately for college after that. We have also really spent a good deal of money this year as well on professional development that addresses both our school and our department goals. So this is where our teachers go to the National Driver's Ed Conference to meet the standards in our wellness department, or our counselors go for state articulation with other counselors to meet the needs of our student services department. And all of these general Title II PD requests come through the instructional coaches. They try to make those requests at the beginning of the year so we can begin to see how we're going to allocate that money and sort of plan for that PD, because what we are really committed to doing is giving all teachers an opportunity to have some sort of professional development throughout the course of the school year. And this year we have really done a good job of fielding those requests and finding ways for teachers to get out into the field and learn best practices and continue to develop their craft. So we have about $2,300 left of that general professional development monies that we can spend, and we still have professional development requests coming in even now. I just received one, another request for AP this week. So teachers are consistently looking for ways that they can continue to develop their skills for the benefit of our students.
On the Title II, because we're making a switch over from ACT to SAT, will there be any development on that? I don't know if it's needed to make that transition over with our teachers. And
there certainly will be when we know for certain exactly what they're going to do, and this appeals process with ACT sort of goes through whatever steps it's going to go through. We certainly, looking forward, are going to need to earmark some of that general PD for SAT if that is the way that it ends up going, absolutely.
And are we also trying to target money towards, as one-to-one starts evolving more and more, to start bringing in the outliers that are slower to accept it, to be able to come in to make it happen?
Yeah, this year I actually went with them, a group of teachers who had not yet had the opportunity to visit Leiden. We went to Leiden to do their one-to-one site visit, and we also have an opportunity coming up. We're going to send 8 educators who have not yet attended the Illinois Computing Educators Conference. We have quite a few staff members that have gone to the ICE conference in the past, but our commitment this year was to target people who hadn't had an opportunity to take advantage of that. So we're excited that we're going to be able to send 8 of our teachers to that conference. But technology certainly having its own sort of umbrella underneath that general Title II PD, technology is definitely something that we are consistently looking for opportunities to enhance. Like you said, those teachers that maybe haven't gotten quite on the bus yet, and so we can bring them along with us.
Questions?
Mm-hmm.
These are grants?
Yes, they're federal grants.
Are you the person who then writes the grants and submits the grants?
No, Title I and Title II grants are grants that come to schools based solely on, if I have this right, Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, solely on the income of the area of our population.
Correct.
Does that make sense?
So
it's not something
even
we
Title
have
I,
to.
or is it based on the percentage of at risk? I mean, or the day care?
Well, percentage of at risk, but generally that has to do with income levels. Like poor districts receive a lot more money than we do.
Okay.
But I write the grants.
All right. So irregardless of the number of at risk, they still look at the income levels of the.
Correct.
All right.
If
Is
you-
it based? So it's just strictly just a dollar-based grant. So I mean, it's when you do a grant for Title II. I mean, is it you submit programs in there and you try to oversubmit, and or what? How does it?
No, we receive an allocation.
Just a straight allocation.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter what
No.
what we're earmarking it for at the time we're submitting. We just submit that we want Title I, Title II, and based on that pool and where we fall in the income levels. Okay, thank you.
Additional question over here?
Yeah, so when, if you get too many requests over, and I don't know what past history has been, you then carry it over to the next year, or what happens?
Yeah, we try to make sure we go through initially and we look at our school and our district goals. So we base all of our requests first on those goals and how the professional development request is going to address those specific goals. So that's why we kind of break them down into those 4 categories. If we have more requests than we can accommodate, what we try to do when everyone fills out their professional development request, they make note of when the last time they received professional development funds happened, so that we can address people that maybe haven't gotten professional development in a year or two and make those individuals top priority when we have a limited amount of funds. So far, this year, we really have been able to address almost all of the requests that teachers have put in. For example, with Title I, we start out with an initial allocation, and then we got a little bit extra money on the back end because some schools don't accept their grant monies. Did I get that right, Tim? Some schools don't want their grant monies, so they reject them, and then the pool sort of gets refunded and they redistribute. So we've been really fortunate this year that we've really been able to meet the needs of all of our teachers. And initially, when some teachers requested, we weren't able to grant those funds, but when we got that reallocation from the federal government, we were able to go back to those teachers and say, even if that PD experience has passed, we can accommodate you. So if there's something else you would like to go out and learn about, we're more than happy to accommodate that.
And if we don't spend it, it can roll over to the following school year.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Walsh?
Well, you answered one of my questions. I thought we had to spend it in the same year, but we don't. Okay. You said this part of the funds, do we only use it for teachers, or do we use it for our paraprofessionals?
Typically, my understanding, I have only dealt with teacher requests.
Okay.
And at the way that I would have to double check on that, but the way that the wording is listed from the actual federal government grant, it's for the improvement of teachers. So I believe, and I'll follow up to make sure, I believe that is just for licensed educators.
So, and we don't use this part of the funds for professional development of our administrators, right?
No, we don't, because the administrators have a separate
Right.
place that can pull from, yeah.
Okay.
So while they write it in the policy, if you read the policy strictly from the federal government, they write it in that you could use it that way, but we do not. We use it strictly for our teachers.
So that leads into first you said we had enough, but then you said people rejected and they went in. So the question I ask every year is, do we have allocated enough funds for professional development? I mean, as opposed to saying, here's what we get in Title I and II, that's what we're going to use. And it's $33,000, do we need 40, do we need 50, or is 33 really enough?
Well, I think it depends on who you ask. I
I'm
mean,
asking you.
I would always tell you, I'll take any professional development
well, I
money
mean,
you give
come
me.
on, you know what I mean.
I can say right now, at the beginning, when we had to deny some requests because of the funding the way it was, that was of course something that not every teacher wants to hear. But as you can see, if you look at this list, the Title II PD goes more quickly because you can use it broad-based for anything.
Right.
But sitting in January at 2364, I can say that we have significantly met the needs of the teachers that are requesting the money, and we still have a little bit left over. So I think it's a sliding scale. I think that it just depends year to year
Well, I
on
guess
what
I'd
we're
ask the
focusing
question a
on.
different way. In a couple months, Tim's going to give us a proposed budget.
Mhm.
We talk about doing bottoms up, so it seems, why don't we get requests prior to applying for the budget for next year from our staff, and have based on goals and all that, and see what people think we need, and then see if we can put it in the budget, and if the Title I and II covers it, fine, and if it doesn't, if it's appropriate.
Mhm.
A lot of the conference requests don't come out till some
Okay.
early fall, that's where we get.
That's part of it. And there are still what some instructional coaches do is,
I'm going to guess, though, I'm an attorney, we have to get CLE. I could go to the same conference every year for the rest of my life and tell you what weekend it's going to be and about how much it's going to cost.
sure.
I'm going to be willing to bet you send the teachers to pretty much the same conferences.
Well,
Every
like
year.
you said, AP, we know that across the board, if somebody signs up for an AP Summer Institute, we can tell you how much that's gonna cost. So we do have instructional coaches at the beginning of the year let us know what they're anticipating they would like to be able to do when we come back in our first meetings in August. So they can sort of take the temperature of their department and see who is up for professional development, who would like to go, so they can submit those requests earlier at that point. To my knowledge, we haven't done that process at the end of the school year. That's certainly something we could do, but to my knowledge, we have just been relying on those federal grants for that money, rather than to say to the board, we're gonna ask for this particular amount of money.
It's an easy step that we can implement, that Kristen and Tim can consider, because in February, they meet with each instructional coach and department and look at their budget, so they could easily put out a request to say, let's get
Sure.
in PD request, you know.
So we can get an idea of what that's gonna be the year
Sure.
before. It's absolutely doable.
What I have to do, if I don't get money in the budget, I don't get to
Sure.
go professional development. Well,
Absolutely.
the company won't pay for it anyway.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's absolutely something we can look at before the close of the year.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary, you sure you're ready for the?
Absolutely.